Homemade pizzas are awesome. I'm going to show you how to make a lovely little beer dough. I'm going to do a Hungarian salami, potato and rosemary pizza. Super simple and super tasty. First thing we need to do is make the dough. So we need to activate the yeast. I've got some dry yeast here. Just comes in a sachet, super simple to get. We're going to make the beer dough now. The first thing we need to do is to activate the yeast. It's a sachet of dry yeast. Simply open that up, pop that into a bowl. Now we need to wake it up, and the way I like to wake things up with is some beer. I've got a lovely Mount Macedon ale here. It's from Holgate Brewery. And like wine, don't use crappy wine when you're cooking, and don't use bad beer. Use a really good beer. It's important to choose the right beer as well. Something too bitter is going to carry over into the dough, so you like something with a bit of malt to it. Also, don't use cold beer. I've warmed this up. It's quite hot outside, so the beer is quite warm. But if it's cold, put it into a bit of warm water and bring it up to temperature, because the yeast is going to eat the sugars and activate. So we'll open that up. We need about 300 mils, so just pour that in. The yeast is going to have a lovely time getting drunk and happy. And there we go, that's about 300 mils. I'm going to get a fork. I'm just going to mix that so it's all combined. Just going to put that aside now. It's going to start to bubble and froth. And you know that the yeast has come alive when it starts to do that. Give that about 10 minutes and then we can make the dough. Now that yeast has bubbled up a little bit. Got our plain flour here. Just going to add the yeast into the flour. A little bit of the Murray River salt. Add a really good pinch of that. It's really important to draw the flavour out. And I love to put a little bit of ground pepper in there. Just adds another depth of flavour to the dough. So there we go. I'm just going to mix that with my hand, get that combined. That's enough. I'm going to let the KitchenAid do all the hard work. So we're going to transfer that to the KitchenAid bowl till it comes together. The KitchenAid's done all the hard work for me. The dough is nicely kneaded. Now we just need to let it rest. Bring it out. Now it's come together really, really nicely. Just form a ball there. Now, as you can see, the dough has come together really, really well. Formed a nice ball. We need to put that aside, cover it with a damp cloth, leave it in a warm place for about an hour. That's going to rise. Then we'll knock that back and make our base. Now, here's one I prepared earlier. And as you can see, it's risen. I'm just going to push that down, knock the air out of it, and get our pizza ready. So I'm going to put that aside. Just a little bit of plain flour left over. We're just going to dust the board so it doesn't stick. So push that across. Be nice and liberal with it, otherwise it will stick. Now I think for about that size tray, decent handful, get that into a ball. I like to flatten it out just a little bit before I start rolling. Just get a better shape at the end. Now make sure you've got flour all over that. Push it out a little bit. We don't want this too thick. We want a nice, thin, crispy base. So start with a rolling pin, bit of flour on that. And just slowly turn and spin and work that out. Take your time. Now the nice thing about using beer in a dough like this, it actually not only gives a lovely bit of flavour, but the carbonation in the beer helps make the dough a little bit lighter, and the sugars in the beer let the yeast rise nicely, so it's a nice thing to use. And there's always a little bit left over for the chef, which is a nice thing. So as you can see, I'm turning it and flipping it at the same time. We want to get this base roughly the same size as our pizza tray, so we are almost there. Last dusting, a little bit more. Try and keep it even. You don't want any thick and thin bits, you want it nice and even. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, pizza tray. Let's have a little bit of olive oil. Put it over there. It just stops it sticking. So just give that, rub it in, and that will stop the base from sticking. Just pop that over. And there we go. Just shape that to the side. You can get a knife and trim it off, but you know, if it's a little bit thick around the edge, it doesn't really matter. Nice and crunchy. So that's our base. Put the topping on, chuck it in the oven. We're ready to go. All we need to do now is finish our pizza. We've got the base. It's looking lovely. Just going to get a fork. I'm just going to dock it. Basically just putting a few little holes in it. And what that does is stop the base rising so much. It's going to get a lovely crust around the outside, but the base isn't going to rise too much because you want it thin and crispy. A little bit of olive oil. Quick drizzle, not too much, you don't want it soggy. Just going to brush that around. I much prefer this over a tomato base. You can really taste the flavour of the toppings way clearer. That's our base, ready to go. Just got to get our toppings ready now. We're going to use the Primo Hungarian salami. We've got some potatoes, which we're going to thinly slice, and we have some caramelised onions. Nice and simple. My friend the mandolin, which loves to take the end of my fingers off, is going to slice these potatoes. Way easier than a knife, a little more dangerous, but you get a consistency. And the thing with a pizza is you want all the ingredients to be roughly the same width because you want them all to cook at the same time. Alrighty. Now we just need to add our toppings. We've got the caramelised onions. Just going to pop a little bit of that on the base. This adds a lovely, lovely sweetness to it. Not too much, spread that about. You want to leave about a 2 centimetre border around the edge so that crust gets nice and nice crunchy. A little bit more. Alrighty. Now the potatoes. So we're just going to run this around the edge. So a few pieces of potato, this Hungarian salami. Bit more potato. Again, just don't forget to leave the border around the edge. Bit more potato, salami, potato. Tuck that one under there so it's nice and even. We'll just finish it off. Last bit of salami in there. Now what we need, a little bit of rosemary over the top. Rosemary and potato is such a good flavour combination, so don't be shy with the rosemary. Spread it out. A little bit of olive oil to finish. And that's it. Super simple. Salami, rosemary, and potato pizza. I'm going to pop that into a screamingly hot oven for about 10 minutes, bring it out, a little bit of salt and pepper, and we're done. That's been 10 minutes, blistering hot oven, and there we go. Look at that. The Primo Hungarian salami pizza with potato and rosemary. That is so good. All I can think of is a cold beer next to it. Perfect.